This episode is brought to you by Progressive, where drivers who save by switching save nearly $750 on average. Quote now at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, national average 12-month savings of $744 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2022 and May 2023. Potential savings will vary. Hello and welcome to This Day in Esoteric Political History from Radiotopia. My name is Jody Avirgan. This day is December 31st, the last day of the year. Lots of interesting stuff happened on December 31st throughout American history. The Emancipation Proclamation was signed. ARPANET was officially turned on, giving birth to the modern internet. 1907 was the first Times Square New Year's celebration. And we will be discussing none of those things today. In fact, we will be wrapping up the year of our Lord 2023 by talking about the 1948 Idaho beaver drop, the time when the Idaho Department of Fish and Game relocated 76 beavers by parachuting them from airplanes into the wilds of central Idaho. Now, why, you may ask, are we talking about this story today? And I will repeat the words I just said. In 1948, the Idaho Department of Fish and Game relocated 76 beavers by parachuting them from airplanes. I don't know what other justification you need for doing an episode. So here to mark the 75th anniversary of the Idaho beaver drop are, as always, Nicole Hemmer of Vanderbilt and Kelly Carter-Jackson of Wellesley. Hello there.
Happy beaver drop day, Jody.
Yeah.
Hey there.
Extra year. I mean, it's been a year-long celebration. You know, we just felt like we needed to sneak in our commemoration of this, you know, on the last day of the year.
Wait till you see the 100th anniversary. It's going to be off the chain.
Yeah.
Epic.
But look, really, the real reason we're doing this is because our pal Ian Chillag, host of our fellow Radiotopia show Everything is Alive and In the Scenes Behind Plain Sight, recently encountered this story, actually included a tidbit of it in one of his recent episodes, and then asked if we wanted him to come on the show and talk about it more in depth, to which, of course, we said yes, yes, yes. And what better way to wrap up the year than with a fellow Radiotopia friend? So, Ian, welcome back to the show. Happy 75th anniversary of the beaver drop. Happy New Year, yada, yada, yada.
And also to you. It's great to be here.
I know you're sick of saying that. Happy 75th anniversary of the beaver
I'm
drop.
exhausted from this year of celebration, this beaver centennial.
Yeah, great way to wrap up the year. Ian, since you were the one who walked this story over to us, how did this story find its way to you?
Okay, so I have the podcast Everything is Alive, where I do interviews with inanimate objects. And this year we decided to mix it up, and I did interviews with animals. And one of my animals was a beaver. Mm-hmm. And whenever we do these, we try and find some interesting story from the world of the inanimate object or the animal to talk about. And once in a while, we come across something that I just can't believe is real. And that was the case when I first read about the beaver drop. I've at this point, I've seen video of the beavers falling from the sky, and I still think maybe it's all made up. It's incredible.
So did they have like little backpacks strapped on their backs, little goggles, parachutes open up when they're about halfway down?
I mean, I want to tell you that when I first started reading about it, that's the image that was in my head. And that is, in fact, better than what they did. The beavers they ended up in these wooden boxes, and they were paired up. One source says they were paired up, male and female. One says it was a male and three female beavers together in these boxes. Mm-hmm. The boxes were actually a big part of the challenge. This is jumping ahead in the story, but beavers, as you know, love to chew through wood. So the idea was they would design these boxes that they were going to drop with parachutes out of planes, and that the beavers would, when they landed, chew their way through and then roam free and do what they were supposed to do. The first box they designed was out of a kind of soft willow, and the beavers got through that too easily, and so they were worried that there was going to be a midair opening and a beaver would fall to its death, or four beavers maybe would fall to their death. So they found a design that worked, and in the course of the beaver drop program, only one beaver was lost. Yeah, so
That's pretty good.
Not bad.
Well, so let's rewind, though, because
Yes.
first of all, I want to hear more about this experimentation with beaver parachuting devices. But why are they parachuting beavers in central Idaho?
That was my question. I was like, we can't just drive these things and drop them off in the forest? Like,
Yeah.
Why do you even need to
What
move
in
them
the
in the
world?
first place?
Totally. So in 1948, human beings were starting to move to lovely parts of Idaho that had previously not been inhabited by humans and were inhabited by a lot of beavers. And so you had the encounter between humans and beavers for the first time. Beavers did what beavers do. They made dams, they chopped down trees. This meant flooded lawns of the humans. And so these beavers, just simply by living where they had always lived and doing what they were supposed to do, became a nuisance animal. And so the humans thought, we have to get rid of these beavers. And they didn't just kill them, which I think is kind of the first amazing part of the story, because it feels like
in the right
that's
direction.
They were just, okay, we'll just kill the beavers. They didn't do that because Idaho Fish and Game also realized that beavers were really beneficial to the places where they did live. They created wetlands. They helped foster environments for other animals. They stopped erosion. So they thought, okay, what if we take these beavers who are in this place where humans are and move them to places where they could be helpful to the environment? Like you said, I would think we'll drive them there. We'll put them on trucks and we will drive them. There were no roads to these areas. So they first experimented with putting them on horses and mules. And if I could read a quote from
Please.
Elmo Heater,
Yeah.
Elmo W. Heater, who was the person who thought up the beaver drop.
He's the Robert Moses of beaver drop.
Exactly.
Can you do it in an Elmo voice?
I will not. If you want to filter me into an Elmo voice, you have my consent. Quote, horses and mules become spooky and quarrelsome when loaded with a struggling, odorous pair of live beavers. These problems too frequently result in a loss of beavers.
Oh,
So horses and mules are out, leaving the only remaining option, dropping the beavers out of airplanes with parachutes.
The
natural
only
next
remaining option.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, they designed, they worked on the box design. They knew they wanted these beavers to be fruitful and multiply once they landed. So they wanted pairs or I guess broods, whichever it was. So they made boxes that would fit 2 or 4 beavers, and they workshopped that design. Then it was time to test it out, and there was a beaver which in all the literature is named or nicknamed Geronimo, which I think
Yes.
let's
not his Christian name, but maybe a nickname.
yeah, I think we could leave. Anyway, Geronimo survived the first drop, and apparently his only problem was, I guess he got trained to go into the box, and so every time he would come out of the box, he would just want to go back in, not understanding that what he was supposed to do was go mate and make dams. But anyway, once Geronimo survived, they went out one day and did it with 76 beavers. One beaver was lost. And this program was apparently a huge success. The wetlands were seeded and aided. The area where the humans lived was free of the nuisance beavers. And here we are. We live in a world that is only the way it is because 76 beavers were dropped from airplanes 75 years ago.
I just can't.
I love this story.
Right?
I love that. Like, it's one of those stories that has a real happy ending. It has a real Noah's Ark vibe, but without, the
Yes.
decimation of the world population. Like, it's a great story.
I can't get over the optics. Like seeing this image. Jody, we should put this like a picture.
Oh,
of
yeah.
this.
We'll send it out. We'll also link to the video, which was recently unearthed. We'll tell the story of that, too. But, I mean, Kelly, try and describe what it looks like.
It looks like a Piper Cub that's flying by. I know, because my husband's a pilot. I mentioned that like 30,000 times, but looks like a Piper Cub that's flying by. It could be something else, but sort of like a biplane. And you see these little images of like parachutes, but at the bottom of the parachute is just this little like box, and then there's another box below the box, and they're just floating midair, landing into this like grassy knoll, and it's just wild to see. I can't imagine setting up that whole concoction and, you know, sort of like pushing them out the back of the plane.
You're used to hearing my voice on the world, bringing you interviews from around the globe.
And you hear me reporting environment and climate news. I'm Carolyn Beeler.
And I'm Marco Werman. We're now with you hosting the world together. More global journalism with a fresh new sound.
Listen to The World on your local public radio station and wherever you find your podcasts.
So I want to dig in on a couple of those things that you just hinted at. I mean, one is, you know, Ian, you did a good job laying out the theory of the case here and how they tested all of this. And, you know, there's articles in the Journal of Wildlife Management about this, and they're trying different techniques, and they're realizing that mules won't work, and they need this kind of wood. There's even articles that refer to the sort of cost estimate of like how much damage does a beaver cost when it's living near humans, how much advantage does it do when it's not, and how much does it cost to relocate them, and okay, it's a worthwhile endeavor. You look at all that, and then it's 76 beavers. I mean, it's not that many. It was one of the big things that strikes me. I mean, for some reason, the story, I hesitate to say make more sense, but it would feel more like, oh, if this was like the, you know, D-Day invasion of beavers, like thousands and thousands, then sure. But it's just for 76. This is a lot of work for just 76 beavers. Do you have any idea why it was that scale?
Well, one thing I love is when you read about it, the official Idaho literature, all of it is basically, and no one knows why they never did it again.
Right.
Well, because it was crazy. Like, that's why. But yeah, I don't know why they stopped there. I mean, I think beavers, you know, they did procreate. There were not only 76 beavers in new homes because of this. There were probably at this point tens upon thousands of beavers from these founding beavers of the Beaver Drop program. But yeah, it feels like, you know, one of those things when you're in a meeting and no bad ideas, and then the craziest idea is the one that gets done.
We should explode a whale on a beach in Oregon, which we recently talked about as well.
Yeah.
But then that's the other part of it that actually it is similar to that story about the whale, and a lot of stuff that we've discussed on this show. I think I'm going to attempt to put this in a larger political context, but the post-World War II-ness of this story I don't think can be overstated because... And we've seen this on the show a lot. It's actually kind of an interesting through line of American history, which is like after wars, people are just like sitting around with equipment, training, and like the itch to do stuff. And this is like probably a product as much of that as like someone in the Idaho department like knew how to fly a plane, and someone else knew how to rig up a parachute, and they had maybe some like leftover supplies, and they were like, well, what are we going to do? Like, let's get after it.
Yeah.
You want to go? Let's go.
Yeah. It's so, I mean, it's the beaver boom. Right, it's so optimistic, and if you look at the literature, there are some people that say the parachutes were World War II surplus that they had left over that they didn't use. I talked to somebody from Idaho Fish and Game today, and he couldn't confirm that, but again, I just want to believe that part of the story is true.
Yeah. Well, why would you use your valuable parachutes unless it was surplus? I mean, this seems like a, you know.
I still have a hard time believing, because Jody, you talked about like the difference in cost in transporting, like the cost of the beavers did and the cost of transporting them, and the cost of relocating them was $8 per beaver versus like $300 worth of damage that the beaver cost, and I still find that hard to believe. Like $8 to move each one. It just, I mean, I can see the beavers doing a lot of damage, but just to make it a cost analysis decision alone does not seem sufficient either.
If we take this most optimistic moment in American history and you have just uncovered it as a money laundering scheme, that actually there was no reason to do this, I would be so sad.
Well, I also think, I mean, the other... I've said a few times that I absolutely love this story because of how upbeat and happy it is. But there's so many different ways how after World War II, Americans intervened and reshaped the environment, whether it was pesticides or the highway system, like all of these different ways that were so destructive and awful. And here's the story about an intervention that was humane, that was cost effective, that actually like made the world a better place. I feel
That
like
looked cool as
I
hell.
love this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that
Great photo op.
that understood the contributions that these animals
Right.
would naturally make. It
Right.
feels so
guys are
foreign
so-
to where we are
Are you
now.
serious? This is such a dumb idea. I can't believe it. Wait.
It's an amazing idea. They should continue to do it. They probably now just like catch and kill, which is
Fair enough.
ideal.
I do have to ask a couple other questions, though, that do add a little bit of complexity to this. So, Ian, we've referenced it, and maybe you have some thoughts on the video that was, I guess, unearthed fairly recently. But, in the last few years, someone discovered basically a 45-minute documentary that was, or a 20-minute documentary that was made about the beaver drop. But watching that has brought up some interesting elements for me here. So one is, there's footage of the beavers getting put into the boxes, loaded onto the plane's taking off, and then they drop out of the sky, and then you see footage of the beaver dropping to the ground, and the box breaks open, and the beaver wanders off into the wilderness. Two things come from that moment for me. One is, what happens to those parachutes in those boxes? I mean, were they just polluting the Idaho wilderness with parachutes? Or did someone then go and pick up the parachutes? In which case, if someone's going out there, just bring a beaver with you.
Yeah. Well, maybe the parachutes are biodegradable.
Maybe the beavers were trained to build homes from the parachutes.
That's
Perhaps. And then there was a whole beaver psyops program that probably cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to train the beavers to build them. But then they also have footage of the beaver dropping on the ground. How did they get the camera there? They probably put it on a truck. Is a camera not any heavier or more
Well, you could put a
fragile
camera
than
on a
beaver?
mule. A mule's not, yeah. I feel like, are you headed to a moon landing? Wasn't real place?
Perhaps. No.
This is a soundstage in Washington, D.C. What are we even talking about?
What I actually think happened was that they staged, and again, this is like a bunch of people who did this stuff in World War II with nothing else to do anymore, but they probably staged a lot of this footage the same way that they would stage footage during the war, and like John Ford was over there filming, movies about the war. This is some entrepreneurial filmmaker was doing the same thing here, and they were staging this beaver drop. But it is, when you think about how'd they get the camera out there to film it, and why couldn't that camera have just been a beaver?
You know what?
I did not think we would land in a beaver drop truther place in this episode.
You know what I got from watching that video, which I have to mention, is called "Fur for the Future." Is the name of that of the documentary. But what I really took away is you see this moment where the box lands, it opens, and you see this beaver come out, and according to the narration, it starts walking away, and the narration says, it goes to find water to dam. And the beaver doesn't think twice about it. And, you never want to make a hierarchy of animals. But I think that this is a program that only works with a stupid animal, right? Because with intelligence comes anxiety. And if you or I were scooped up, put in a box with another human, dropped in a new place, we land and that box opens, we would be like, what just happened? Oh my God. The beaver's just like, well, it's time to make a dam. And I feel like that there's something, we should appreciate that.
Don't they have a show like that, by the way?
They do.
Oh, they actually naked and afraid.
Except you're naked or something.
That's actually the human version of a beaver drop. Is that show Naked and Afraid? Or
The
Bear
beaver is
Grylls show or
naked but
whatever
not
it is.
afraid. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, actually, Ian, that brings up something that we should end on here by coming back to this episode that you did for the animals series. That's part of Everything Is Live, which was brilliant. Some of the my favorite podcasts of this year. And who played the beaver with you? It was
Connor
Ratliff.
Ratliff. Yeah.
The brilliant
He was
Connor
a really
Ratliff.
wonderful beaver.
Yeah, and I think he embodied a little bit of what you were just describing about the kind of single-mindedness of a beaver. But was there anything else you learned about beavers while doing that episode, or did this just completely take over your brain and derail everything else?
Yeah, there actually to that point, I did learn this thing that we didn't put in the episode, that There's been a couple stories of when a road crew is working, like rebuilding a bridge or just patching a road. And if there are beavers in the area, they're a real problem. They're just like there and they're always in the way. And one thing that road crews have figured out is they will place a speaker far away from their work site that plays the sound of running water. Because if beavers hear that, they go there and they start damming. So they set up decoy sound of a fake river to draw the beavers away, and they just start working. Yeah.
Makes me think of the time that Dwight Eisenhower decided that he was going to torture a squirrel and record the audio of it and use it in order to deter other squirrels from eating up his golf course on the White House lawn. I don't know if you heard that episode, Ian, but we're building a nice body of twisted animal stories here.
I was going to say, we need an animal week.
Yeah.
I think squirrel torture is a great place to end this.
I just feel like I researched this, right? I wrote down notes. I talked to somebody from Idaho Fish and Game.
Yes.
I still sort of feel like I just lied to you all for 20 minutes. Because it's just like, how is this real?
I know. But there's footage, right? Just like the moon landing. There's footage. We will post it on social media. People can check it out. People should go listen to Ian's episode of The Animals. Yeah, again, we really wanted to do this story and we just found an excuse to do it. But it does feel, I will say, weirdly fitting as our final episode of the year because, one, I think it captures the ethos of this show in some way. But also, I will say, we love being part of Radiotopia. Today is literally technically the last day of the Radiotopia fundraiser, which has been going on all this month. And, having compatriots like Ian and the beautiful work that he does, it makes us really, really proud. So you can sneak it in. Even if you're listening to this in 2024, you can still sneak it in and become a member of Radiotopia to support shows like ours, shows like Ian's, shows like all the other brilliant shows that we are pals with. So thank you to all of you. Happy New Year to everyone listening, and Happy New Year to you, Ian Chillag.
Right back at you.
Nicole Hemmer, thanks to you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Jody.
Kelly Carter-Jackson, thanks to you, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. My pleasure.
Parachutes are attached to cargo lines, and the boxes are stacked in rows along the waist of the plane. 10 boxes to a load, 20 beaver, ready for the flight to mountain meadows. The plane makes a careful approach, ready for the drop. Now into the air and down they swing, down to the ground near a stream or a lake. He's on his way now. His nose and his instinct tell him where to find the water. There's room here for a new home.
Thanks for listening to This Day in Esoteric Political History. Our researcher and producer is Jacob Feldman. Our producer is Brittany Brown. Our transcripts, which you can find on our website, are done by Kala Nakua. This Day is a proud member of Radiotopia from PRX, a network of independent, creator-owned, listener-supported podcasts. Audrey Martovich is executive producer. Yuri Lasordo is director of operations. If you want to support the show, tell a friend about This Day and become a member of Radiotopia at whatever level works for you. You can do that at our website, thisdaypod.com. Also on our site, you can find transcripts, sign up for our newsletter, find links to follow us on Instagram and Threads, buy merch like shirts and hats and phone cases, find information about our theme song, give feedback on an episode we've done, or suggest topics for a future episode. That and lots more, thisdaypod.com. My name is Jody Avirgan. We'll see you soon. Support for This Day in Esoteric Political History comes from Odoo. What is Odoo? Well, Odoo is an all-in-one management software with apps for every business need. Odoo has apps for CRM, accounting, sales, HR, inventory, manufacturing, and everything in between. And they're all in one easy-to-use software. And the best part about Odoo? All Odoo apps are integrated, helping you get things done faster and more efficiently. So, when you think about business, think Odoo. To learn more, visit odoo.com/thisday. That's ODOO.com/thisday.
Radiotopia. From